Welcome to the Manager's Tea Break. I'm Nikki, and thanks again for spending your break with me. Today's episode is how to capitalize on your team members' strengths, a story of how focusing on strengths, not just expertise, turned around a failing project. This event is going to be a disaster. That's what my project lead said to me with a key conference just months away. It wasn't just stress. Tension had been brewing in the group for a number of weeks now. Despite having a skilled and resourced team, along with a solid plan, progress was slow and communication was breaking down. Early in my leadership career, I thought success was all about getting the right people with the right skills into the right roles. That formula, matching tasks to the people with the technical expertise, served me well. The project lead was a very organized person, and he had created a detailed project plan for the event. But he was struggling with the fact that the project was not going according to that plan, and he felt that he was the only one seriously worrying about it being behind schedule. A couple of other project members were currently focused on a different conference that was coming up earlier and struggling to keep to the agreed timelines. While on the other hand, a different team member felt that the project was doing just fine and that there was plenty of time ahead of the event to make things successful. He was just irritated that the project lead wanted to move what he saw as unnecessarily fast. I noticed that a few times after their project meeting, one or the other team members would go for a coffee with a team member who wasn't on the project. I'd often see her sitting with different project members and could overhear her listening to their challenges and trying to smooth over some misunderstandings. When doing a check-in with the project lead, it was obvious he needed more support. Clearly, the group needed to talk through the issues brewing before they boiled over. He was already overwhelmed, and as things were behind schedule, it wasn't fair to expect him to become an expert in conflict management overnight. Rather than offering to jump in myself, which would not only undermine him but take away a valuable learning opportunity, I suggested he could try bringing the other team member into the project. I'd seen from the informal coffee meetings that she had a natural gift for getting people to open up, and that seemed to be exactly what this team needed. That way, he could capitalize on her natural strengths, effective listening, and facilitating discussion to get the group to open up and start working together more effectively. Almost overnight, the group transformed. Her presence helped to create more discussion within the meetings, which meant the different team members could understand a bit better where everyone else was coming from. Communication started to flow more naturally, and soon afterwards, the team started to hit their stride. That experience taught me that it's not just about the technical skills team members bring to the table, it's also about how to best capitalize on their individual strengths. How to identify strengths. Quote, strengths give you your cutting edge. They're the difference between good and great. They're obvious enough to set you apart, yet versatile enough for you to shape and develop them into your secret advantage. End quote, from Gallup. Identifying the strengths of your team members starts with observation. Pay attention to the tasks people are good at, seem to draw energy from, and take the initiative on. When people are doing tasks that play to their strengths, they are typically happier and more engaged with the work. When I observed the team member going for coffee, it was obviously her choice to do so. She was not in the project and not directly gaining from doing these discussions. She was just engaged and wanted to help. Talk to your team members because sometimes their strengths are not immediately visible. For example, if they've never been given a chance to put their abilities to the test. Don't be afraid to give your team members different roles or tasks to let them explore what their undiscovered strengths could be. Try to also get feedback from team members that work with them, because oftentimes people can see the strengths in someone else that might not be immediately obvious to the person. Think about it. How often has your own manager or peers given you feedback like this? Has there ever been a time when a colleague told you that you had a knack for something and you never really realized until that moment? For people managers, it may also be useful to use tools to coach them on how to systematically develop their own strengths. Tools like Clifton Strengths can be really useful for this, and I've shared about that on a previous podcast. So if you want to learn more about that, I would go to the podcast called Developing Your Managerial Superpower, Self-Awareness. How to nurture strengths. Nurturing strengths will help to maximize the potential of your team. After identifying what your team's individual strengths are, provide team members with opportunities to use those strengths, encourage further development of those strengths, and pair team members with different strengths together. You'll want to create opportunities for team members to use their strengths, but be careful of putting them in a bucket. Strengths can change over time, and it's important to be aware of this and encourage continuous development of not just one strength, but across various areas. Also, make sure to give your team members the right support, because if an employee wants to use their strength but is limited in some way by the project structure or the stakeholders, then this can discourage them from future development. How to capitalize on strengths. Ultimately, when considering how to best capitalize on your team members' strengths, the best approach is going to be to work towards building a strengths-based culture and assign them roles based on those strengths. Practically, though, this can take time to do. We can't just do a strength-finding exercise and immediately shift everyone's responsibilities around. Plus, team members often have overlapping strengths. Everyone needs an opportunity to develop their strengths, and some have more developed strengths than others. Fostering collaboration amongst team members is probably the best practical tip for capitalizing on strengths. If team members understand their own strengths, for example, I'm a big picture thinker, then they can automatically think about who to work with for their next project. For example, I need someone who thinks about the details. Reflecting on the event organization, it's clear that capitalizing on a team member's natural strength is ultimately what turned that failing project around. To capitalize on your own team member's strengths, aim to build up teams not just with the right combination of expertise, but also with complementing strengths. That will create a space where those strengths can best be taken advantage of and continue to develop further. Thanks for listening. I'm Nikki, and this was another episode of the Manager's Tea Break. New episodes of the podcast are released every month. If you enjoyed today's episode, I'd love if you could give it a review on whichever platform you're currently listening on, Spotify, Deezer, YouTube podcasts, many others. I can't remember the rest that this is going out on, but thank you very much for listening, and you will hear me again next month.